Now, before we can use this website, there is one more thing that you want to make sure that it's done properly. So I'm gonna come in here on the input, I'm gonna right click it, and I'm gonna click on inspect element. This will show me the code that's used, basically the HTML code that we used to see when we open the text editor. But when I select the input and click inspect element, it will show me the code that's responsible for rendering this input. So right here, as you can see, I have an input tag, and if I go on it, it highlights the input that's being displayed in the web page, so that's cool. And what we would need to make sure that it exists in the web page is a form tag. So we want to make sure that these inputs, the username, the password, and the login button, are all wrapped in a form tag. So if we look in here, this shows you the hierarchy of the tags in the page. And if you literally just keep going up, you should see something called form in here. Now, as you can see, I don't see any of that, and that's a problem. So if you did this, if you right click your input and click on inspect element and seen that the inputs are being wrapped in a form tag, then you don't need to do what I'm gonna do. But I'm only gonna do the next steps now. I'm gonna manually add the form tag in my web page because it'll make it so much easier for us to capture the username and read it using a simple sniffer. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna right click my index again. I'm gonna open it with Genie like we did before. And we can also do the same thing that we just did just to confirm to see if we have a form or not. I'm just gonna go to the start of the document. I'm gonna go on search, find, and I'm just gonna look for a form tag. So open the tag and just type in form. Now if I hit enter, as you can see, it says that there is no such thing called form in the web page. Therefore, that's a problem for me. Again, if you have a form tag, then skip this video. You don't need to do it. I'm only gonna do it because I don't have a form tag, so I'm gonna manually add it. So it's very easy for me in the future to sniff the username and password and see it through all the packets. Now, like I said, the form tag needs to wrap the username and the password input and the login button. So it needs to be placed before this input right here. So to look for the input, we're going to look for an input tag. So I'm just going to put input in here. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. And as you can see, you can see that we have a username here. I'm just going to hit enter to bring it down. So we have the username. This is what's being displayed on screen. And then we have the input, which is basically the text box that the people enter their username. That's in here. Now we also need to look for the password input. So again, I'm just going to click on next to go to find the next input in the text. And as you can see, we see the password here. So this is literally the password, the text that you see on the page. And then it's followed by the input tag right here. Now again, this is the text box where users enter their password. The last thing that we want to look for, so we already have the username, we have the password. The last thing that we want to look for is this button, the login button. So again, I'm going to put my mouse here before the input, the password input. I'm going to type in here, login. And again, as you can see, we have the login text. That's the users are seeing here. And notice in here that they're actually not using a login button. This is literally just a text. And if you analyze the HTML more, you'll see that they're submitting the form using JavaScript. And I'm going to modify that in a minute as well. So I'm just going to bring this down so it's easier for us to see. And as you can see, this is the login. This is the end of it. Usually when you see / something means this is the end of that tag. So this is the end of the login that we see. This is the login of a container that contains the login. And this is just more code in here. So I'm just going to hit a number of new lines just so that we have our code separated. So the code that we're interested in is right here. And as you can see, this consists of the username text, the username input, the password text, the password input, and as you can see at the end, we have the login that the users press to literally log in and submit the username and the password. So the whole idea, the whole thing, the whole reason why I'm doing this, the inputs in here are not wrapped in a form tag. And this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to manually add form. I'm going to specify the method that the data will be sent, and we're going to send this using post. This will make it easy for us to see it in Wireshark or in any sniffer later on. And the action, this is basically the web page that the data should be sent to. Usually, if you're actually programming a web application, you want this to be sent to a program that will analyze the username and password and validate them. But in my case, I don't care where it goes. All I want is, I want this data to be sent over post so I can sniff it using my sniffer. So I'm literally just going to send it back to the same web page that we're in, which is index.html. So I'm going to put a / index.html, and we're done. And as you can see now, when I close the tag, it automatically added this for me. This is, again, like I said, this is the close of the tag. So this is the end of the tag. That's the way HTML is. For every open tag, it should be closed at the end. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this or cut it. And I'm just going to put it after my input. So I have my login input in here. And I'm just going to put that here at the end, literally after that. So I'm just going to make this prettier. Put that in here just so that you get the idea. And I'm just going to go over this again. So we already had all this code in here in the web page. And all I wanted to do is I wanted the data inputted in the username and in the password text boxes to be sent over HTTP using post so that I can sniff it easily and see it easily when I sniff the data. So I added a form here. I set the method to post, and I set the action to be sent to the same web page that we're in right now. And then at the end, we close the form tag. Now, one more time, if your web page already had the inputs wrapped in a form tag, then you don't need to do this. I'm only doing this because of the way that my target web page was programmed.